Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Sweet and Sour Soccer. And guys, if you've watched us before, you'll know that we're a general football YouTube channel that cover all elements of football. But we don't hide the fact that we are, of course, Wolves fans. And sometimes something comes out about Wolves that we've just got to speak about. And today it certainly has. Ask Wolves Season 2 has arrived, and it's been causing quite a stir already on social media. Of course, 11 episodes that have been released talking about all aspects of the club, and lots of people giving their opinions already on the, very different opinions as well. And that's exactly what I'm going to do on today's video, give my opinion on it. I'm going to speak about the four main people, obviously Mr. Bruno Lage, Scott Sellers, Vinnie Clark, and of course, Mr. Jeff Shee himself, because they're probably the main people. But what I'm also going to do is I'm going to summarize the rest of the videos, maybe for those of the videos that you guys haven't rushed to watch, or maybe just you've watched them and just fancy a bit of opinion. So I'm going to do that, maybe save some of you guys some time and not having to watch those. And I'm just going to give you them in a very bite-sized format. Guys, before I jump into today's video, though, help me out. Hit that like button. Also, please do subscribe to the channel. And on this video, I also am requesting your comments and thoughts, especially as Wolves fans watching this, on whether you agree with me. And if you don't, feel free to let me know. But also just your thoughts about the whole season of Ask Wolves Season 2 as a whole. So let's jump into it and let's waste no time, because the first video, episode 1, was, of course, Mr. Bruno Lage. He gave quite a lengthy interview, to be fair. And there's been a few people calling for him, to go, which I could sometimes see. I could kind of see how that was justified towards the end of the season. Results did go a bit not to plan, let's just say. But do you know what? I really warmed to him over this interview, I'll be honest. I felt that he's kind of been dealt a similar card to Nuno, in that maybe a bit more unfair than Nuno, in the fact that he's had injuries, he's had a very short squad to deal with. Of course, he spoke about those kind of items. But of course, the main thing that he also spoke about as well, which I particularly picked up on, is I don't feel he's been allowed to play the style of football which he wanted to achieve when he came in there. He spoke quite a bit about having to adjust to what the team has. And I found that quite commendable that, managers like to come in and play their style. I found it quite commendable that he's accepted the shape of players that he's got, the strengths within the squad haven't really adapted to his kind of football, and he's had to adjust to cater to that. Some things that he picked out in particular was the height and size of defense maybe means that he's not been able to play a high as line as he maybe wanted to achieve, and maybe be so dominant within the defensive areas, which also probably touches on the fact that he's opted for a back 5 rather than a back 4, which we knew was the original plan when he came in. Now, I really do feel, after watching episode 1 of Bruno, I think, and I'm sure, I'm hoping a lot of fans will agree, we need to give this guy time. We really do. I think, we also got to see what goes on behind the backroom staff, and you quickly find out it's not just about Bruno Lage. He's really just the face of it all. There is a full team that really are so important to Wolves with what goes on in terms of like the managerial appointment and the backroom staff, in terms of what they offer the team, in terms of the analytics that are used, and just the coaching staff as well. It really did seem like a great kind of department that we've got there, and I did warm to Bruno himself. I thought he was a really commendable character, and for me, I really do feel that Bruno needs to stay next season, because I think we're going to see something good from him next year, depending on what obviously the rest, he's kind of given throughout the transfer window. But yeah, I do really feel that he's maybe been sold a bit of a lie in some regards. I think we saw that across the summer transfer window and January just gone. But, he did at the start of each transfer window talk about the need for certain players, the need for a bigger squad. He also touched on that in this video as well. But he didn't really get that. And I did feel quite sorry for him in that regard. And I did feel even across this video, he was a bit more muted at times when pressured about what he needs, because he's come big before, hasn't he, and really committed to that and not been given the squad that he's hoped for. And it's probably left him in a bit of an awkward space when he's then had to backtrack on what he's got, because obviously he doesn't want to be talking bad of those that ultimately employ him. But of course, then we have to jump on to Mr. Scott Sellers, who, has been coming under some increasing pressure from Wolves fans. And one of the main reasons for that was the handling of his transfer business. Of course, he is, for those that don't know, the man that leads mainly on everything transfer-wise. And of course, he is the man that makes the decisions. And one of the main decisions that people have been criticising him for is that of Adama Traore, the loan to Barcelona. And of course, it was a subject that came up within Ask Wolves. Now, I kind of got what he was saying, but I still think it was a very poor decision to send him to Barcelona. So basically what Scott Sellers had to say in this is he basically referred to the fact that Adama Traore, he didn't want to stay here. He didn't want to sign a new contract. And he also wasn't getting the game time. He wasn't being played. So a decision was made that we needed to shift him. We needed to shift him to maybe up his market value. It was maybe felt that the bids that were coming in, of course, Spurs were reportedly offering 20 million. It was kind of took that a decision was made that we could maybe ship him out somewhere that he would play, and then that would up his market value for when he returns in the summer. Now, interestingly, that kind of makes me question why we sent him out to Barcelona, because if he wasn't getting in the first team at Wolves, then why would we assume that he would be getting into the first team at a monster club at Barcelona? I felt like it was a move overall that really did benefit Adama Traore more than it did the club, to be honest. And that was my take on that. He did speak about the fact that we tried to offer Adama Traore a very healthy, well, he said in his opinion, a very healthy and good deal, but he wasn't interested in entertaining it. Of course, just on that subject briefly, you do feel that it's more Adama's agent pushing that than anyone else. He really feels that he can get a lot better money for Adama. So it'll be interesting to see what happens over the summer. But ultimately, that loan for me was a failure. He also touched on Ruben Neves. Of course, he's not going to go, Ruben Neves is going to leave. But one thing that was predominantly across this Ask Wolves series was Ruben Neves. And I just kind of got the feeling that there's a general acceptance within the club that Ruben Neves will be leaving. And it's going to be now more about whether, we could get the best deal for him and we can get good money for him, which of course will then be used to be put back into the squad. My general take on Scott Sellers, let's be fair to the guy. He's had some successful windows, but recently those windows have not been successful. So we know this is a massive year for Wolves. It makes me nervous that he's going to be the person in charge of the transfer activity. But this is a really good opportunity for him to prove himself, to be honest, across this upcoming season. So it'll be interesting to see what he does over January, because if he doesn't get this right, this could be very, very detrimental to the club. Now, next was obviously Mr. Vinnie Clark, who I've got to be honest, as a general character, I kind of liked him. I took to him as a character in general. He's got a bit of a difficult job at the moment, isn't he? Obviously, for those that don't know, Vinny is, of course, the man that's in charge of everything kind of commercial, and that includes ticketing, which was a big subject within this interview. Now, of course, season ticket prices have rose once again. And it was interesting that one of the things that he wanted to throw out was some of the benefits that they have took with season tickets. And that's, stretching the direct debit across from 6 months to 9. You also then had the fact that they've got rid of the admin fee. They've also got rid of, I believe, some direct debit fees as well, which they spoke about. And they spoke about particularly the admin fee, just kind of talking about the fact that they'd realised that isn't something that, although it's quite common for maybe selling of tickets for boxing events, selling of tickets for festivals, etc., etc., when selling season tickets, it's not really something that should be applied, and they have removed that. Although all these savings don't really don't really cover the fact, I should say, that they have risen the season ticket prices. Now, that for me has meant that ultimately Wolves fans are paying more, and whether that's spread across 6 to 9 months, of course, that will help Wolves fans. But we are paying more, and we are getting closer to being one of the highest paying clubs within English football. And if we're not, I'll talk more about what Mr. Jeff Shee had to say next. you kind of wonder if we're actually really seeing the benefits of that in all elements, to be honest. So, I mean, look, I didn't think Vinny was a bad guy, but I think we've really got to be careful on how much we're charging Wolverhampton. We're not typically a rich town. We're not. And when you've got the financial hardships, I'm questioning how much they've actually understood those hardships with fans. And, what we don't want is really loyal fans being priced out. So they've got a tough job of actually, making sure that doesn't happen. But when you see that we've still got a massive season ticket waiting list, I sometimes question how bothered they are about the type of fans that are coming in, and more just bothered that they're assuring that they've got a full stadium, to be honest. And that was my take on episode 9, Vinnie Clark. Now, this was the one that obviously can cause the most controversy. And the headline I'd give with this one is, I was disappointed, but I was not at all shocked from what I saw of this interview. Of course, Mr. Jeff Shee. Now, interestingly, with this interview, I had to check that we're actually a football club and not an esports company, because he spoke more about being an esports club than he actually did about us being a football club, to be honest. I mean, Jeff Shee, I'm sure we all know who this guy is, but his head's very much in the commercial element, which I don't feel benefits us as fans that actually go to the game. And, your fans within Wolverhampton. In fact, he spoke about, and he did brush over it quite quickly, but he did point out that the fans that attend the games are now only a small representation of the market that they're trying to achieve. As well as speaking about esports, he also just touched on their gaming brand and talking about how those elements tie into Fosun. Now, I think the main thing that Wolves fans have with this, and correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, guys, but I have no problem with all this esports, the record label. I don't have any problem with the game inside of it as well. Should we see that money be spent in the club? And ultimately, once again, it was kind of confirmed that Fosun themselves won't be investing heavily into the club this summer, which is quite concerning. There was hints that it's going to be more about buying, selling some players to bring in money, and then realigning the squad in that way, which is really disappointing, because although financial fair play was spoke about, I think we're all quite aware that we're not under the same European restrictions that we were under the last few years. Okay, we've still got to be within financial fair play, but I'm not really buying what they're saying about our spending power when you see the likes of teams such as Newcastle, Aston Villa going out investing how they are. And let me remind you that Aston Villa, I actually learnt this from a Villa fan, they have someone behind the scenes that's actually was basically developed financial fair play. So the fact that they're going out and spending, I don't buy this thing that, Aston Villa are in trouble of breaking financial fair play when they've actually got someone behind in the backroom staff that was actually responsible for developing the rolling of financial fair play. I'm not really convinced that we're spending to our full capacity. And for me, I feel like this financial fair play is being used to basically cover the fact that we don't want to heavily invest in this team. So there wasn't a lot that really impressed me with Jeff Shee. I think we all know that we want to commercially grow as a brand, and I think we're all aware of what that would mean for Wolves. In the benefits, it means greater revenue coming into the club, but we're still yet to see that be spent for me. We spent big when in the first season of the Premier League, and since then our investment into the club has been really weak, and especially when you now consider the fact that we're going to have the option of 5 substitutions, which of course Bruno Lage did touch on in his interview as well. We really need a heavy investment this season, and it's really displeasing to hear that this might not be coming. And he did speak about the fact that some may go, some may come in. Of course, we're already seeing that. John Ruddy coming out today. It was also confirmed that Saiss will not be renewing his contract. A very heartfelt Instagram post from him. But we've got to see, bodies come in effectively. And if we don't, we could be in a real trouble. Now, I think the reason that some fans are struggling, and that's me included with Mr. Jeff Shee and what Fosun are promising us at the moment, is it feels that, look, we're kind of lucky in one way that we're never going to end up in financial trouble. We're never going to be a Barrett. we're never going to be even a Birmingham City. We're never going to be maybe even a Derby. I don't see us entering that kind of financial trouble because these guys are obviously very aligned with financial fair play. They're not going to overcommit funds. But of course, that doesn't really stop creating worry for me. It doesn't. And I feel the one thing that you don't want as a fan, and I do feel this is the aim for Fosun, despite what they might say at the moment, this is the one aim of the football club at the moment, just to be a stable Premier League club. Now, that might sound ungrateful, but as a fan, you want to be excited. You want to go into a season believing that you've got a push of getting into the European places. And you know what? Even the battle of relegation, at least there was some entertainment there. The problem with just becoming a team that's going to target finishing between 9th and 15th every season is it can be quite monotonous. There we go. I got the word out. And it can become quite boring. And that sounds really ungrateful because there's teams in the Championship and League One that will just face the exact same thing, knowing they're just going to be a mid-table team. But as football fans, we live for the excitement, and I don't think we're going to get that under Fosun for maybe a few years. So, guys, obviously that was the main four, but let's give a quick overview of the other videos. And starting off with Mr. Matt Jackson reading off his name, his title here. Very impressive title name, Strategic Player Marketing Manager. But as well as having a really impressive name, I did like him and I like the role that he's doing. He spoke about the fact how, essentially his role is achieving the best for the academy players and other players such as loans, and basically making sure that it's successful. Now, we've already seen that working quite well this season. Obviously, Sarek had a very good loan at Birmingham City before injury. The loan of Morgan Gibbs White. We also saw Sanderson and Ryan Giles being moved mid-season actually to potentially put them into better teams and teams to basically better suit their playing style. So overall, I thought it was a good interview. I quite like what his job is and I like him as a person. So that is one positive. Next, we come on to Laura Nichols and John Hunter Barrett. Now, for basically the guys, these spoke about the academy and also the women's team. Laura actually referred to the fact that the women's team hopefully can one day, and the academy team could get their own ground. Now, that is interesting because she spoke about the locality difficulties rather. And when you see Jeff Shee as well, also referring to the fact they're not actually going to overspend and the focus isn't spending in the women's team, you wonder if maybe there's not really an alignment there. And of course, John Hunter Barrett also spoke about the academy. And one thing that was a promising from the academy is that there's a focus on the footballing identity and basically how the team will basically like to play in a way that makes them integratable into the first team. So I think that was really promising, to be honest. Next up was Dr. Rob, and I'm just going to call him Dr. Rob because I'm not even going to even try pronounce his surname because I'll probably butcher it. But he basically was speaking about injuries, using data within injuries. It was a bit of an interesting watch, but there was nothing much controversial that came from it. So I'm just going to move on to the next guy, Mr. Matt Wilde, who did have a bit more controversy to him. I just can't take to the guy. I'm sorry. I know that might be quite harsh, but I just can't take to the guy. I really can't. I just don't see him as a likable figure. He spoke a bit about getting players onto long-term contracts. He spoke about the fact that we might not be able to compete in wage structure at times, but what we can offer is really a helpful environment to new players coming in. Look, I'm under no illusion. I don't believe that we can sell Wolverhampton over London clubs, over other clubs where there's perhaps much nicer places to live. Let's just be honest, especially London. We know the foreign players, they'd like to come in and live in London. If we're not offering better wages, I don't get what our unique selling point is, to be honest. But maybe for the players that do come in, he did touch on how we've made a great working environment for them. So maybe that is one thing, but I didn't really buy what he was saying as a whole. Next up was Mr. Steve Sutton. Now, this man basically is dealing with the ground as a whole, and that's basically ensuring safety. He spoke a bit about the fire in the Billy Wright, how that's affected the club commercially, and also touched on the fact that that's going to be all up and running soon, if not now. And also spoke There's obviously been a few people that have had concerns around the safety of the ground, returning to it after COVID. So if you are one of those people, a really good watch, because it was quite reassuring what they do in match day and all the planning goes behind that. Finally, Russell Jones is the last person I believe I'm going to speak about. And obviously, well, not obviously, but he's the general manager for marketing. My one take on him, he's pretty much well trained on from Jeff Shee, because he spoke a lot about esports, also spoke about the NFT market quite a lot. Didn't speak an awful lot about other things, to be honest. It was very focused on those kind of areas. One thing that we did learn from this interview, though, that ManBet will no longer be our sponsor next season. So look out for a new sponsor on the shirts next season. Hopefully it's a sponsor that really does complement the shirt, basically, but also maybe one that's quite ethical. And I'm sure some people would want us to go away from a betting partnership. So guys, in conclusion on this video, I just feel that, there was some disappointing things to take. I feel that there's quite a lot of positive going around the club in the people that we've got in terms of the infrastructure, but I'm not sure that we've necessarily got the right people behind the scenes. One thing positive I do want to touch on, that I've touched on before, is I do feel that we're safe as a club. We're not going to go into any financial difficulty, but there is the problem with that the fact that this may mean that we're not really going to push to the ambitions that we were once sold rather. And now Jeff Shee was asked on that, and he did kind of basically, he pushed away the answer, but he almost said that, that 10-year plan of competing with the best is pretty much gone now. And, for me, it's a bit disappointing. It really is. And it's just going to be such a massive summer, isn't it? I don't know what to expect for this summer. It could honestly go either way with this club. I don't want to back it one way or another, but so far things aren't looking positive. Guys, as I said at the start of the video, please do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel as well if you are new here. And also, I want to hear your comments. I want to engage with you guys on this one. Let me know your thoughts, and hopefully I'll see you on another video. Let me know your thoughts. Goodbye.